So this says Putin Huilob, which means Putin is a dickhead, which is basically like one of the battle cries slash marching cries of the Ukrainian army, which is pretty amazing to my life. This was taken at the Tesco in the porta potty outside the Tesco, so obviously Ukrainian wrote it. Um, this morning I walked outside at 9 o'clock to go to the Tesco, and I saw one of my guys, the driver, playing with his dog, uh, American football, and he could throw the football too, and a dog would grab it, and like like you'd have to wrestle for it. It was pretty fun. So this whole thing is slowly just becoming a whole series of dog pictures. So that's I'm just gonna have to deal with it if you're gonna keep watching. Um, but yeah, this morning I went to the Tesco and I made a lot of contacts. Like, there's a guy in super. Well, these two guys came up to the window, and the one guy was like super duper old and had like all these badges and things and a whip and a uniform. And the other guy was like, "This is my president. I'm his man. I don't go anywhere without him." And he's like in charge. The president is in like charge of like some house of like elderly people and stuff. So actually, no, I lied. This morning I went to the train station first, and then I went to the Tesco after the train station because we've been having this issue at the train station where they won't, um, they won't let people with Russian passports register as volunteers. Like when you want to volunteer at the train station, you have to go to the militia room, and they like take your passport and enter it into this system, and then they give you the badge that I'm holding, and there's like on the other side of it is a calendar, and they stamp it, and then you get a wristband and whatever. um they If you show them a Russian passport, they tell you that like they have enough volunteers for the day and stuff, and they've been turning people away. It's been crazy. And this is Doug from Tesco, naturally. Um so I went to the train station first, and then after that I went to uh, the Tesco. So I was like 9 to 2, and then I went to the Tesco. But in the Tesco, there's a napping room for volunteers, so I napped there. I've been pretty exhausted. It was a very emotional day for me yesterday. And then after I did all those interviews that made me tear up and stuff, I called my former Ukrainian teacher from Peace Corps that taught me Ukrainian like 10 years ago, and we talked, and like that was actually uplifting, but it was still emotional. So this Oh, so to clarify, the reason I went to the vokzal, to the train station first, was because if at 2 o'clock they rejected two Russian volunteers that were meant to replace me and the other girl who had an English passport, then they we would have to stay there. And they actually did reject him. They told him that the two girls with American passport and French went in, and they let them through. And then Oh no, the two guys went in with the Russian passports, and they told them, "No, we have too many volunteers. You come back a different day." And the two girls with the American and French passport came, and they let them through. They didn't say they were 20 volunteers or anything. So we don't know what to really do about this. Um, we're just like we've been recording it and sending things to the mayor and stuff, trying to put pressure. But that's the situation. So I should have stayed at the Tesco because they didn't let those guys in like past 2, like until 9. However, uh, those two guys just grabbed my badge and the badge and the vest of the other girl, and just like said fuck it. And they were right, because as much of a hard time as they give you to register, once you're in there, they don't freaking care at all. So it's all just kind of crazy nonsense. Anyway, at 2 o'clock I went to the Tesco. 9 I was at the vokzal, and then at 2 I went to the Tesco, and I met this lady, and she started reciting poetry and telling me about how she was praying in Kiev during Euromaidan on the street, trying to protect the protesters so that the BUK, the riot police, whatever, stormtroopers, wouldn't, you know, beat the crap out of the protesters because they had to get through these little babushkas praying first. But you know what? They gassed the freaking babushkas. They're crazy, these freaking BUK, Ukrainian 2014 authorities. And so I also met this guy who's doing a photo project, which he's going to present. And he wanted to photograph her, and I had to translate for him. He's from, where the hell is he from? Portugal. Uh, so we met her. She has this whole book of poetry she wrote about Ukraine and getting bombed and how it was like horrible and you didn't have bread even though you had money, but you couldn't spend money on anything. This is her son. She's very religious. She believes in miracles. And her son was paralyzed, and now he's not. Like, he was paralyzed as a child. He had some sort of debilitative disease. I couldn't really understand what she was saying the whole time. Like, I understood like 99% of it, but not the name of the disease. But he beat it somehow, some sort of disease you're not supposed to beat. She thinks that if she prays all over Ukraine, she can create a protective barrier around it. And she's been telling me that there is going to be a miracle, a worldwide miracle. Uh, and yeah, I mean, I kind of hope she's right. She just reminds me of a lot of really cute boosas that just like talk and are sweet and optimistic and energetic. I mean, she's taking care of her son who's disabled while fleeing. She got gassed in 2014. Like, she's a badass. And just to clarify, when I say she was gassed, I mean they gave her the tear gas to the crowd to disperse it because the babushkas were so intense. Anyway, now I have to tell you about these dogs. So I get home from exile, and they asked me to freaking help this guy take these dogs across the border. He's Ukrainian, and I don't want to send anybody with a Russian passport to go into Ukraine. The Ukrainians won't let them in. The train station is the Polish, here is the Ukrainians. They won't let them in. So I go with my American passport, he has a Ukrainian passport. We're going to escort these dogs across the border. Well, it turns out having an American passport does not exclude you from russaphobia. Now, the russophobia at the train station is perpetrated by the Polish authorities. And I will say that some Russians have gone through, but they gotta be mixed in with like Americans and stuff. But here, the Polish people let me right through. And then I get to the Ukrainian side of the border, and the Ukrainian is like, you looks at my passport, and even though it's an American passport, it says my place of birth, which is Russia. Now, this pisses me off because my old passport, this is my second passport, I had to renew it in 2013. That one said place of birth was Soviet Union. That would have been much better in this situation. And in general, it's cool because the Soviet Union isn't even a country that exists anymore. So that's kind of badass that I'm from a country that no longer exists, and now I'm just from fucking shitty ass, crazy Russia. And anyway, they're like, "You were born in Russia?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And she takes my passport and walks away. And then she comes back and is like, she calls somebody. And George, the Ukrainian guy, is like, "Wait, what's going on?" And they're like, "Don't worry about it." And then they're like, "You wait here." And then they took me somewhere. They took me into a room and they like questioned me basically. And they're like, "Why are you here?" I'm like, "I'm a volunteer." And they're like, "You're not a volunteer. You haven't been here. Like, all the volunteers have been here for 2 months. And you're just entering Ukraine now." I'm like, "I've been volunteering in Poland." They're like, "Yeah, but now you're trying to enter Ukraine." And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm trying to just help my friend walk these dogs across. They're freaking huge. And he's old." And I'm saying all of this in my broken Ukrainian, and because I don't want to speak Russian to these people, and they're speaking pure Ukrainian to me, and I don't know if that's just how they speak or if they're like whatever it is, but it was annoying. But I survived, and I didn't tape it, which sucks. But uh, I did text as it was going on, and the people in my house were like, "Oh my God, we're so sorry," and I'm like, "Yeah, I think it's gonna be okay." Oh, they wouldn't let me in Ukraine. Actually, I had to wait by the Ukrainian like booth, the border control booth, and he went through, and then a lady helped him walk the dogs right up to the booth, and then they passed the dogs to us, like through the little area. There was no turnstile, which I thought was weird, but like where the turnstile would be, and then I walked across the like whatever, half a kilometer between, the two checkpoints, like in this fenced in area with two dogs, and then we crossed the Polish border, and there they didn't give us a hard time. Although they should have, because you're supposed to, like, the dogs are, George had to put the dogs in his name, and um, they're not his dogs, and you sign this thing like saying, these are my dogs, they're not going to change hands. It was total bullshit. So basically, like, freaking dog smugglers at this point. But, it is what it is. So when I was actually at the Vexel and not smuggling dogs across the border, I took a picture of this because it says closed. It says closed, and it's like, it's a money exchange, and there's an ATM in there, and there are no freaking ATMs open. It's Sunday, it's a Catholic country, and all the shit is closed. And I mean, there were some open around the train station for people to change money so they can get on buses and stuff, but they were hard to find. And you know what? The Polish money changer and a lot of the other people were not helpful to anyone who didn't speak Polish. So, yes, that was exciting as well. But something that kind of was, I was trying to have fun with it was that when I was waiting, after like the whole rigmarole at the train station, they made me wait, and then I was just waiting at some point for George to come across the border with the dogs. And while I waited, I was texting, and the lady was like, the last lady took my passport, and she's like, look, he he looks like an American. He's wearing a baseball cap and sneakers. And I was leaning against the wall. She's like, look, he's standing in American. Like, like in America. Like, that's the language we speak because we lean on things. And anyway, it looked like it was going to be fine. I was just texting the group what was happening. And I had my harmonica with me. So I played some jailhouse blues while I waited on the Ukrainian side of the border for my friend. And I'm really bad at it, so don't judge me. But I did it, so yeah.